Perfect. Hi, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining the Acing and Interview workshop this evening. My name is Shelly Byrne. I'm an employment consultant and facilitator. I work with the Community Employment Resource Center in Canada. We are funded through the Employment Ontario programs. Not sure if you know, there's about 11 Employment Ontario service provider offices in the Ottawa area. All of the employment services are free, so please take advantage and reach out. We're here, to provide services to help you with all your job search interventions. So again, welcome. I'm going to show you the PowerPoint right now. If you have any questions along the way, please put them in the chat or raise your hand, and Kavi will, just kind of let me know there's a question instead of waiting to the end, because then we could spend an hour at the end with all the questions. So again, if you have a question as we go through the PowerPoint, put it in the chat, and then we'll try to answer it as soon as we can. So just be a sec here. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Good, perfect. So we're going to do a little bit of an overview, like an agenda. So part one will be the pre-interview planning. Part two is the before, during, and after the interview. So the do's and don'ts. Part three is the types of interviews, which I'm sure if any of you have done any lately, definitely a different ballgame through this COVID pandemic. Part four is the behavioral and common interview questions. So pre-interviewing, planning. So do meaningful career goal settings, right? You don't want to have your, you don't want to set yourself up for a downfall, right? So make sure that they're meaningful career goal settings that you can actually achieve now, right? Don't be so hard on yourself to make it something that's way down the future, right? So act in the moment now. What are you looking at, right? Have a values-based resume and have an effective cover letter. Lots of times the employers will say optional within the job posting of having a cover letter. I always recommend that you actually do a cover letter. Even if it says optional, it shows you're going above and beyond. So identifying meaningful career goals. So you're the only one that knows yourself, right? You have to be honest and you have to change your perspective, right? Know your worth, know your strengths, know what you are getting yourself into. You want to show confidence, right? And you really want to be honest. You never want to lie. In an interview, it will come back to haunt you. Identify your life values and career goals. Right now, during these precedent times, it means more than anything. People are really reevaluating their values and their career goals, right? Is this something that I really want? We have had time as of late to think about, is this really what I want? Acknowledge the jobs and the industries that interest you and which you are suitable for. Again, select something that that's achievable for you, right? Evaluate current labor market trends. So a value-based resume. So it presents your most valuable skills, your qualifications, and other employment assets. It allows you to stand out from others. So you want to shine, right? You want to be the spotlight. You want that employer to remember you from the interview, right? Effectively identifies and communicates specific contributions you can make and results you can produce. You generally want to keep like a 1 to 2 page limit in your resume. Obviously, if you're, in a master's or PhD, you may want to, add some more information in there. If you're a project manager, you want to emphasize a little bit about the projects you've managed. But again, the employer or the HR person does not have hours and hours to look at that resume, right? So you want to have it pretty simple and plain and to the point and stand out. So the cover letter. So your cover letter is going to target a specific job and the specific employer, right? Some people think they can get away with having basically one resume. I also teach the resume clinic for the Community Employment Resource Center, so I have a fair amount of knowledge with resumes as well. So print off your job posting, highlight the specific skill sets or transferable skills that you have that meet that the employer is looking for, right? You want to have some information in that cover letter that's going to tweak the employer's interest. So they're like, yeah, I really want to read your resume. I want to read more, right? You want to stand out. So now what? You have a realistic career goal, a new resume, and an impressive cover letter. You have been screened in and are called for an interview. How do you convince an interviewer that you are the most suitable candidate? So before, during, and after the interview. And remember, the resume when you apply gets you the interview, right? The interview gets you the job. So changing your perspective. So when you're going for an interview, it's like you're studying, right? You're doing your research. You have to think about, if I was the employer and I was interviewing me or interviewing them, what am I looking for, right? What hiring for the qualities would you be looking for that candidate? What makes them a good fit? Not only for the position, but for the whole team, right? Is this person going to fit in as a team player with my organization? So before your interview, you want to make sure you have done your homework. You want to research the company and the position. You want to determine the history, the products, the services, and the office culture. You want to identify the employer's needs. When you're doing that research, look to see, has the company won any awards? How long have they been in business? Anything that when you meet with them, you can say, congratulations on being in business for 30 years, or congratulations on winning the Employer of the Year award. The employer knows that you are then, oh, they've done their homework, right? They've researched my company. Be prepared to present the best you, relevant qualities, knowledge, skills, and accomplishments. You know you're almost always going to be asked, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why are you interested in this job? Why do you want to work for us? They're always going to ask you that. So if you read up on the company and do the research, you're going to be able to answer these questions and you're going to excel. So interview preparation. You want to find out all required interview details, right? Make sure you know the time, make sure you know the location, make sure if you have to pay for parking, make sure that you know you don't want to be late for this interview. You want to know the name of the interviewer, the length of the interview. You want the contact phone number. If something happens and there's an accident, you're stuck in traffic, you can't get through, you want to be able to phone. It's better to phone the company saying, you know, I'm tied up in traffic, than not phone at all and skip out and ghost them, right? Not attend the interview. Develop answers to common questions and customize them to your work history and your style. And practice your responses out loud. I like to do mock interviews with my clients. So if they say I have an interview next week, it's for a a paramedic position, I'm like, okay, let's pretend, right? Let's do a mock interview, right? And I'll Google some questions. You can actually Google what questions could a paramedic be asked in an interview. And then print them off and do a mock interview with somebody. If you're not working with an employment consultant, do it with a friend, do it with a relative, right? It's really good practice. Develop answers to common questions. Customize them to your work history and your style, and practice your responses out loud. Prepare a list of appropriate questions to ask the interviewer. This is really good. It really shows that you're interested in the position. Call your references, ask them for permission, and then prepare them for an interviewer's call. A lot of people put people down as a reference, and then the employer goes to contact them. The phone number's wrong, the email's wrong. Make sure you give the employer the proper contact information and give the person who your reference is and explain to them, I've done an interview, I've provided your contact information. You may hear from Bell Canada. You may hear from them, right? Give them a heads up. You don't want your reference, your person who you've provided as a reference, to be caught off guard. So interview preparation. So bring a little portfolio or a folder. You want to have 2 or 3 copies of your resume. Why was that? Why do I say that? Sometimes there could be 2 or 3 people in the interview who are going to be interviewing you, and they may only have 1 resume. This looks very professional, right? You've got extra resumes. Make sure you have a copy of the job posting, letters of recommendation, references, bring a pen, bring paper. I had like a 1-inch thick portfolio, copies of my certificates, diplomas, right? Have it all in a pack. So if they ask you for something, you can pull it out and you have it. You're being very proactive, okay? So this is basic stuff. Interview, make sure you get a good night's sleep, right? solid breakfast, you're alert, you're focused, right? You're confident. Obviously clean, proper attire. Because there's so many people with potential allergies, try to avoid a lot of cologne, or like no cologne, no perfume, aftershave. That can just set somebody off. I know right now a lot of the interviews are being conducted through Zoom as well, so I guess some of that wouldn't be. Arrival. So go to the interview alone. Arrive 10 to 15 minutes before the interview. I'm usually about half an hour myself. Turn your cell phone off or anything else that could be a distraction. Relax, be friendly, professional with everyone that you meet. This is really important. I know particularly where I work, when somebody is interviewed, they'll actually go out to the receptionist and say, how was the candidate when they came in? How did they introduce themselves to you, right? So it's really important. The first impression does matter. So when you meet that receptionist or whoever's at the main desk, make sure you are very, very polite and proper. Mention your appointment, thank the person, and wait quietly. So this is a really good time when you're sitting in the waiting room. It's a really good time to review all your information, the research on the company, review your resume again, review the job posting, right? Make sure a lot of this is common sense, but it's like, it gives you time to prepare for yourself. The more you can sit and review, the better for you. So your initial introduction, small talk, establishing rapport, right? Underlying events. And this is what I said, first impression does matter. Tentative evaluation and judgments. Research indicates that many people make snap judgments about a person due to their first impression. So you want to make sure it's a good one. So during your interview, so the interviewer will make a snap judgment about you in the first few seconds of your meeting. Greet the interviewer and introduce yourself. Follow the lead of the interviewer. Stay on topic and ask for clarification when necessary. If they ask you a question and you're not really sure what they're looking for, repeat the question and say, is this, I'm going this way. Is this what you're interested in, what you're wanting, what you need, right? So you just want to make sure that you're understanding what they are asking. Provide copies of your resume, references when asked, and if you see that it is needed. State your interest in the position and the organization and really show enthusiasm, right? You want them to see that. You're really so happy to have, been called in for an interview. So during an interview, be attentive to body language. Make eye contact and don't stare. Avoid crossing your arms. Smile at appropriate times. Be concise, concrete, relevant responses. Avoid fidgeting. Make sure you have good posture. When asked if you have any questions, briefly ask any suitable questions from your prepared list, right? You want to have a list of questions. If your questions have been answered, ask the interviewer for their business card. State your appreciation for the interview and thank the receptionist on your way out. So communication is really essential. Take a moment to think about the question and organize your answer before speaking. It's okay to have pause for a minute or two. You want to make sure you answer the question. Focus on the question. Answer what is asked without wandering, and make your key points in your answer. Don't be afraid to be too afraid of silence. Be truthful and be specific. Avoid generalizations and provide concrete examples. Above all, be yourself. That's what you are selling, right? You're selling yourself with your transferable skills and your qualifications for the job. Show me the money. If asked questions about salary expectations, I mean, you know what your worth is, right? Do your research, find out, if you want to be a welder, find out what's the salary range for a welder for a specific area, right, in Ontario. If you need to do some research, try the following links. There's workingincanada.gc.ca. There's the payscale.com. The Job Bank is another really good government website. So do some research, right? So you have an idea for the position that you're applying for. You have an idea of the salary range. At the end of the interview, what are some of the questions you might ask the employer? So questions you might ask. So be prepared to have at least 3 questions to ask the interviewer. How did this position become available? Right? The position I'm in became available because the person was retiring. So that was great to know. That person, stuck it out long enough with the company to retire. So to me, that's a good point. Who would I report to? When will you be filling the position? How many people would I be working directly with, right? Would I be working mainly in a group or independently? How would you describe your orientation, right? Is it like a week of training? It's good to know that, right? How many employees does the department have? When can I expect to hear back from you? Would I be expected to travel? What might a typical day be like? This was a really good question. When I was in the interview, I said, what is the company culture like? And they're like, wow, that's a really good question. We've never been asked that before, right? And of course they answered, well, we find we're like a family here, right? We have each other's backs. We're very family orientated. We're really team orientated, team driven, right? So that was like, okay, that's great. Count me in, not me, right? So it's really good to know what's the company culture like. So after the interview, remember I said get the business card? Immediately send a thank you note by email or hard copy. Thank them for giving me the opportunity to come in and discuss a possible future with them, right? Check your phone messages. Follow up with the employer as agreed. So it's a really good idea to do that. Keep to your usual routine. Don't sit around and wait for the phone to ring, right? Continue with your job search. And this is a typical, what happened to me where I am now, because there was a new transition where the HR department, they were going through a new hiring process where they ended up hiring an HR director, and it was kind of like a little bit of a shuffle. So when I went for the interview, I had sent a thank you, and then it was about 2 weeks after I sent a follow-up email because I hadn't heard anything. And they were like, oh, sorry, for apologizing. We're just going through a transition right now. And we'd like to offer, we're going to contact you. We'd like to offer you the position, right? So sometimes don't think, oh, I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks, so I probably didn't get the job. Because sometimes it could be 3 weeks to a month. It just depends on what's going on in the organization, right? So there's all different types of interviews, and I'm sure you've gone through them, especially of late with the virtual interview. So there's screening and the telephone interview. So that could be your first interview. General questions are asked to determine basic qualifications and is often done by the telephone, right? They want to have somebody do a telephone screening to see if they want to take you to the next level of interviewing. And within the government, sometimes they can have 6 to 7 different types of screening processes, if any of you are trying to get into the government. There's the traditional one-on-one interview, which I'm sure many of you have done. This might be your only interview or one of several. It can be a screening interview, a skills determination interview, or a final hiring session. Then there's the panel interview. This is a several to one interview, and you're the one. Address your response primarily to the person who asks the question, but glance very briefly at the other interviewers, being prepared for some stress. So if there's a panel of 3 or 4 people, the person who's directly asking you the question, make sure you have eye contact with that person. And then when you go to answer, look at that person and then glide your eyes to the whole candidate, so to all the interviewers, so they know that you are addressing the whole panel. And for a group interview, a team interviews several people at once by interacting with all of them. And I'm sure you've all been through, more than one different type of interview here. So there's the competency-based interview. So you've talked about what you can do. Now the interviewer wants to see what you can do. So this is an opportunity to demonstrate your skills, right? It could be like a word processing test. It could be responding in writing to a case scenario. Second part of my interview is I actually had to pretend that the panel was clients or participants in a workshop. So I had to design a workshop and I had 10 minutes to present that workshop. So that was a little bit different scenario that I had. The simulation exercise. These exercises can be part of almost any type of interview. They often include formal presentations, which what I did, and or role playing, right? They could have some sort of like a role playing where they, would want you to be part of that and act in that. So there's an internal candidate interview, right? So prepare for this interview just as you would prepare for any outside your current company. So anytime you go to an interview, and I've done this type of interview before, it is difficult because you know the people who are interviewing you, right? So when you answer the questions, you have to act like you do not know who they are, and you have to answer like they don't know who you are, they don't know anything about your history or background, right? So that can be a little bit challenging. Media-based video and or audio conferencing. So be personable. Don't get carried away with hand gestures. I'm very one to talk with my hands. Be in animated or don't let your voice go into monotone mode. So avoid stepping out of the camera shot or moving too far away from the speaker. Ways to ace an interview. Obviously, be prepared, right? We talked about being prepared. Definitely have to research the company and the position. Make sure you research the company's vision and mission. I've had many interviews where the question would be geared at, with the vision and the mission of the company. So if you didn't know what their vision and mission is, you wouldn't be able to answer that question properly. So really make sure that you do your research. Obviously, dress appropriately. We talked about bringing extra copies of your resume and your references. Arrive early. Be confident in yourself. Hold your head up, right? They saw something on your resume when you applied to that job. So they obviously believe that you have the skills, right? The transferable skills for that job. So be confident. Make eye contact and listen carefully. Show your enthusiasm, right? Answer questions honestly and directly with examples. And like I said, practice makes perfect. So if you have a partner that you can practice with, do a mock interview, that's great. And follow up and send a thank you note. Do we have any questions so far? I wasn't sure. I wasn't looking in the chat.
No, there's no question in the chat box.
Okay. Certainly if you have any, just put them in the chat and we can stop and address them. So, ways not to win an interview. Obviously arriving late, but then remember I said if you were going to be detained because something that is not of your doing, please call and let them know. They will appreciate that. Life happens, right? Don't appear bored or forget to do your research. Speak in long-winded manner. Speak too briefly with yes or no responses, right? When they ask you a question, they don't just want a no or a yes, right? They want you to elaborate on that. Have a negative attitude, right? You want to go in being positive, enthusiastic, or appear conceited, like, I definitely got this job, right? Well, maybe you do, but don't, act like that, right? Share unrealistic goals. Bad-mouthing former employees. Never badmouth a former employer or coworker. Chewing gum, smelling of cigarette smoke, lots of perfume, that sort of thing. Not a good idea. Okay. So behavioral questions and storytelling. So you're the storyteller here, right? And they're the audience. They want to hear a little bit about your mini story, right? So behavioral questions. They seek information about how you have handled job-related situations in the past, how you might handle them in the future. Past performance is an indicator of future performance. So tell me about the time when, right? Give me an example of, right? Give me an example when you showed leadership. Give me an example when you had a conflict with an employee or your employer, right? What would you do if, right? You're going to find a lot of these, a lot of types of interviews now are containing behavioral questions, right? Be specific in your answer and always provide examples. It's all about examples. So, if you need to study and do some homework, write down the questions, right? And kind of write down the answers so it's fresh in your mind. So behavioral questions, prepare and practice stories before your interview, right? These stories need to highlight your skills and strengths. Try to think of stories that relate to the responsibilities and core competencies required by the job. Remember the SAR acronym. when you structure your response, right? S is for describe the situation. A is what action did you take? And R is what result was the result of your actions, right? Because you know in an interview, they're going to want to know. Give us an example when, right? So if you start writing down a few of these and preparing yourself, you'll do a lot better in the interview. So structure your story in the three parts, right? Your situation, your action, and your result. So describe the situation. What was happening? What problem were you facing? Include only your relevant details, right? Your action. Describe what did you do? Explain the steps you took to improve or resolve the problem. Highlight your skills, your skill sets. So result. What happened as a result because of your actions? How did others benefit? And what did you learn from the experience? Always end your story with positive results. You don't want to bring any negativity to an interview. So behavioral interview questions. So here's just a couple, right? Describe a time when your customer service skills and diplomacy have been put to the test, right? If you start thinking of some of these things now, if you're applying to a customer service role, you know they're going to ask you that question. So start thinking about some of these questions that you think they may ask and write down the answer so it's fresh in your mind. Tell me about the biggest project you've worked on from start to finish, right? Describe a time when you had to gain the cooperation of people you did not supervise. Tell me about the last time you found a creative solution to a problem. Describe a time when you had to juggle priorities to meet a deadline, right? We know we're all multitaskers. Give an example of a time when you took the initiative and you ran with it. Describe a time when you had to work under pressure, and we've all had those. How would you handle a coworker who felt was not pulling his or her weight on the team? What have you done to contribute to good team building? And describe a time when you had to practice good listening skills, right? Good communication skills. So these are just some behavioral interview questions to think about because you know they're going to ask you behavioral questions. Today's interviews, they are asking behavioral questions and they want to know examples. Okay? So typical interview questions, target the following areas, right? Obviously, they target your skills, your skill sets, transferable skills, your experience, your job and cultural compatibility, interpersonal skills. Here's a big one, problem-solving abilities, right? You're a critical thinker, problem solver, right? Enthusiasm and motivation, creativity and leadership skills. There's nothing wrong with being a follower. There are followers and they are leaders, right? If you are a follower, you always can say, although you are a follower, you like your leader to know you're the right-hand man, right? You will help them any way they can, right? Professionalism, career goals, and personal interests. So I'm having quite a few clients that are being asked illegal questions. So questions pertaining to race, national origin, culture, sexual orientation, religion, age, marital status, family situation, disabilities, and health. These questions are illegal, and they're not supposed to ask you them. Okay, what if they do? How do I answer the question? How does this question pertain to the position? That's what you're going to ask them, right? If they ask you, how does this question pertain to the position? And we'll see how they answer that, right? So common interview questions. So they almost always will ask you, so tell me a little bit about yourself, right? So first of all, they've probably seen your cover letter and they've read your resume. So they do know a little bit about you, right? From that, obviously, you know, they really thought, oh, let's bring this person in for an interview, right? They're really interested in you. So this is the perfect opportunity to sell yourself to an employer in just a few seconds. You need to package yourself into one small paragraph in which you mention your work experience, your skills, your education, your goals, and your personal qualities, right? They don't need to know about, remember we talked about illegal questions, if you're married, if you have children, right? They don't need to know any of that. Declare your interest in the company and how you could make a difference if you were hired. If you are a recent graduate with limited work experience, be sure to mention your educational qualifications and emphasize the classes you took that pertain to the job. So here's an example. I'm a chef with the Westin in Ottawa with a diploma in culinary arts and pastry arts from Algonquin College. I have over 4 years experience cooking in Toronto and Ottawa with an exemplary record in menu planning and the preparation of both savory and dessert dishes. I am an energetic, I love to be challenged and enjoy taking on new responsibilities. I am very impressed with your new restaurant, particularly your vision for the future. And I definitely like to be part of your winning team. Wow, this person sounds so enthusiastic. I want them to work for me. So what are your strengths? Describe 2 or 3 skills you have that are most relevant to this position. For each strength that you give, be prepared to back it up with an example, because you know they're going to ask for it. In addition to describing how your strengths have worked for you in the past, talk about the ways in which these skills could be put to use in the new position. I would say that my strong interpersonal skills are one of my greatest strengths. I work easily with others and I'm always open to various points of view. I also have good judgment about people and resolve conflicts in a constructive manner. Given the type of employee you are looking for, I think that these skills directly relate to the job. I am hardworking and I've spent the past 2 years taking classes to further my education and knowledge about the industry. Wow, like that's a great answer, right? We're learning all sorts of things about them. And especially the point where they say taking classes, it's like, okay, they're like a life learner, right? They're always willing to learn and continue enhancing their skills and abilities. So that's awesome. So what are your weaknesses? While you want to be honest, you always want to make sure that you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Think about the many duties the job entails and try not to point out a weakness that would be like a major obstacle as far as your potential duties are concerned. Try to think about a weakness that's not too big of a deal and can be overcome. Another smart move is to discuss how you are working to strengthen these weaknesses. One of my weaknesses is I don't like to say no. So anytime I'm asked to do something, I always say yes and I do it. So what happens with that? You can get a lot on your plate, right? I'm a multitasker. So on the other hand, that weakness is like a strength for the employer, right? The employer really wants an employee who's going to give 150% and never say no. So just an idea. So just be careful how you answer that. So what sets you apart from other applicants? Your answer should demonstrate confidence in your abilities, right? Without sounding conceited. A good way to illustrate your worth as an employee is to talk about what others, preferably past and present supervisors, would say about you. If you have specific skills that relate to the job, be sure to emphasize this point. Make sure that the reasons you give your uniqueness are well thought out. So what would your friends tell me about you? So this is really good. If you're not really sure what people think about you, ask them, right? The interviewer is trying to get a better sense of your personality. So how do you act when you're not at work? She or he is interested in the parts of your personality that will naturally be revealed in time. Make sure that your personality traits you reveal are ones that would be looked upon favorably, obviously, by the company, right? So tell me about your relationship with your current and past supervisors. So the interviewer is trying to get a sense of your personality as it relates to that of your prospective supervisor, right? So remember what I talked about, you don't want to be talking bad about past employers or coworkers. Talking about past bosses gives the interviewer a good idea as how you work and makes him aware of any potential problems that may arise. So avoid being negative. Be honest, but do not slander previous supervisors. End your response by emphasizing the type of boss you work well with. Some people don't work well with a micromanager as a boss, right? So, you don't really have to emphasize that. Because I've had people ask that question. I left because my manager was a micromanager, right? And the person who's interviewing you, who's going to be your manager, could be a micromanager. So you have to be very careful how you address that, right? So what do you know about this company? Start out about telling how you first became aware of the company, right? Talk about your experience with the company's service or product, whether it's your own or someone else you know. Discuss the many reasons why a job with this particular company would be ideal. The recruiter is looking for evidence of a genuine interest in the company, right? They really want somebody who's going to be loyal and a good advocate for their company, right? So what personal skill or work habit have you struggled to improve? So the answer, I think one habit I have worked very hard to overcome is my ability to say no. There you go. Look for an example from your earliest days in the workforce so that any sort of negativity can be attributed to your lack of experience. Tell me about the time when you didn't perform to your full potential, right? This could be a question you could be asked. The first time I had to make a presentation to our board, I failed to anticipate some of their questions. Now my director and I brainstorm all the what ifs in advance. So talk about a mistake you made early in your career, making it easy to blame the mistake on lack of experience, right? I mean, we are human, right? So why should we hire you? Lots of times you'll get that question. So this is your chance to sum up your skills and your values as an employee without repeating your resume or your employment history. So here's your chance to offer 1 or 2 examples that might explain why you want to work in this particular company, right? Or organization, and why they would want you to work for them. Seal that interview and leave a lasting positive impression, right? If your company, when you're doing the research, if they're very focused about the community and you are all about volunteering, well, you really want to emphasize all about how community active and involved you are, right? Especially today's day and age. It's all about working together, right? And in the community. So really emphasize that. So what are your salary expectations, right? So you want to suggest a salary range rather than a specific figure. If you say you're going to work for $18 an hour and you don't know what they think, what they were thinking of offering you, guess what? They're going to start you at $18 an hour, right? So know what you're worth based on your education and your past work experience. If asked about a previous salary, be honest and disclose. Mention any benefits you received. Ask the interviewer the pay range of the position and respond accordingly based on your research. If you do not have a clue what the salary is and they ask you, what your salary expectations are, you can say, well, from doing my research in this specific position with other companies, the salary range is 40 to 50,000, right? So you're not saying either way that, what you're gonna, so maybe they'll give you 45. So a summary. So the interview is the most important step in winning a job. You can never be too prepared for an interview. It's like studying. We all went to school, right? It's like studying. Do your research, write down answers, write down questions, do a mock interview. The interview is one case where practice definitely makes perfect. Hopefully the ideas and strategies covered in this workshop will ensure that your next job interview and everyone after that will be successful and land you the job that you really want. So does anybody have any questions? I'd like to thank everybody today for the workshop. Does anybody have any questions? Or have you been to any interviews where you were asked a question and you were like, oh, I didn't know how to answer that question? I'll just stop sharing here.
Okay. So Mona, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the very informative presentation. I really appreciate the good points and
perfect.
The professional speech. And I'm really glad that Kaveh invited you. My first question is regarding the national origin question that you said it's not supposed to be asked. So you said that in response to that question, we might respond, how does it pertain to the position? And then wait for the answer. So if the interviewer says that nothing, I'm just curious, what would be the best way to answer that without mentioning your national origin and also not disappointing the interviewer or not making him or her feel that he is insulted?
Well, I mean, first it's how you feel in your heart too, right? I mean, if you're very proud of your origin, your nationality, if you're very proud of that, And that's the answer that they're giving you. If you feel comfortable that because it is an illegal question, you do not have to answer it. But if you do feel comfortable and very strong about your nationality, you can address that, right? You can say, I'm from Syria, if you would like to do that, that is entirely up to you. But it is an illegal question. You do not have to answer that question. But you should be proud of we should be all very proud of our diversity and all the experience that we bring for wherever we are, right? However we are, who we are today, we should be very proud of that. But you do not have to answer that question.
You're correct. Obviously, we all have to be proud of our nationality and where we come from. But unfortunately, it's hard to admit, but we all face, systemic racism in the news nowadays. And some companies or some individuals might be a little biased towards certain nationalities. So in those cases, when we're not that comfortable or we're not that sure that how they would perceive us to be, based on stereotypes as a new employee. So how could this question be answered without, causing any problem with the interviewer?
Well, I think first of all, right now, honestly, with what's going on right now, they would be really, it wouldn't be a wise question for them to ask. It really wouldn't. Because it's with all the different, what's going on today, right? It's not just the pandemic, it's the racism that we're going through. So I would be very surprised if an employer did ask you that question, because there could be a lot of allegations that could come back to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. My next question is about that interview question that you mentioned before, why you left your last job. And you said if you had some kind of conflict with your previous boss, do not badmouth him or talk behind his back. So, but at the same time, you also mentioned that we have to be honest. So, what kind of answer would you suggest as an example? Not, to paraphrase you, not to shoot ourselves in the foot, and at the same time, be politically correct.
Yeah, so you don't have to, because you do want to be honest, but if you're, say you're working for this position, you're working for this supervisor, and there is you've either left because there was a problem there. It could be anything from, racism to if they were a micromanager. Instead of bad-mouthing that organization, you could always say you came across your job posting, you did some research on your company, on the company. I was very enthusiastic to learn, what the company has to offer. And I would like to, I want to continue to enhance and grow my skills. And in the current position that I was in, I found that I wasn't able to move up the ladder as much as I would like to. So you could always kind of emphasize it on that you were kind of like at the top of the ladder where you were, and you wanted to continue to grow, to learn and enhance your skills and abilities with this position that you saw that came available. So with this position, you see that, you would be able to grow within this organization. So that kind of way, you're kind of getting around, like beating around the bush, but you're saying that, you are very enthusiastic and interested in their position, and you want to continue to be a life learner, continue to grow within an organization. And you could say, you would reach the level at the company you were at. So when you saw this position, you're just like, oh, it really tweaked your interest, right? Because you wanted to move up the ladder. But I would never say anything about a micromanager or, you know, like for example, for myself, I was doing the same role that I'm doing now with another Employment Ontario service provider. There wasn't, the company that I'm with now, we are really busy. We deal with a lot of diversity. And I really wanted that. And I really wanted to specifically work more with youth and more with newcomers. And where I was working, there wasn't a lot of newcomers because we were in a small town. So I wanted to continue to enhance my skills and abilities because I really wanted, I love hearing stories about everybody who's come from a different country. I love listening to their stories. I love to hear that. So that's what I emphasized, why I wanted to work for the company that I'm with, because I wanted more diversification and flexibility, and I wanted to continue to grow. So that's what I had said, even though I did have a micromanager.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much. And finally, would you please provide your contact information at the end for us to be able to contact you if you need that?
Yes, so please, if anybody is, you know, I mean, obviously it's easier if you're living in the Stittsville, Canada area, reach out because the services are all free. But there are about 11 offices within the Ottawa area that we all are funded by Employment Ontario through the government, and we all offer the same services.
Thank you very much.
So I added your information in the chat.
I was just going to say that's perfect.
Yeah.
Let me just look. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have one more.
Negotiate for salary and benefit in their interview. Is there any technique for this purpose? I mean, generally for salary, I mean, like we talked about, you do your research and, you know what you're worth, right? So, especially if you have your, you know, your experience, your education, so you do know what you're worth. So you don't want to shortchange yourself either, but you don't want to be too conceited. So you can negotiate, you know, see if there's a salary range there. That's the easiest way to do it. But see what you've got to get a feel for what range they're looking for. Lots of times we're lucky in jobs that we're applying, they have the range there. So yeah, okay. So see what the range is. And if they say, okay, we'd like to offer you the position, we'd like to offer you $45,000 a year with 2 weeks vacation. If you know what you're worth and you're okay with the salary, you know, come back with, you know, in my past position, I had 4 weeks vacation. Would you be willing to offer 3 weeks, right? Or, you know, just you do have some leg room there. You can work with it, right? Like depending on your experience, right? So you can, you know, move around the personal leave days or the sick leave or the sick days. You can maybe ask for more vacation. If they don't want to pay you, rate out more money, hourly or yearly, then they may, because I had a client that she wanted this job, and the job, like there was a certain number she had in her head. Okay, so let's say 50,000, and they were offering her 2 weeks vacation. And so the job was, I think they wanted to offer her like 42,000. And she, you know, calls me and she's like, oh, Shelly, you know, I don't want to take 42. Like I really kind of have 50, you know, set. And I said, well, what's the vacation? And she said, well, you know, it's 2 weeks. And I said, well, if you, I said, you have to look at, or no, sorry, it was 3 weeks. And I said, so you have to look, you know, what they're paying you for a week. So if they're willing to offer you 42 and give you 3 weeks vacation, if you'd rather have 50 and 2 weeks vacation, like you can do a bit of flexibility like that. Like today's day and age, vacation is very important to people. So So somebody would rather take a little bit of a lower salary, but have 3 weeks paid vacation, right? So you can use the vacation, you can use the benefits. It's not just about negotiating salary. Like you've got, so anyway, in a nutshell, the client ended up getting, I think she got 45,000 and she got 3 weeks vacation. So she originally wanted 50 with 2 weeks vacation and she ended up getting 45 for 3 weeks. So she was really happy with that, right? So you've got a bit of flexibility there. And you also know your self-worth, right? So any other questions regarding salary? Can I ask what is the value you are putting on this position? Okay, what do you mean? What is the value for putting on the, you mean the salary range? Like what they're...
Yes, I mean salary range. So, yeah.
Yeah, so generally what happens in an interview, you never really want to discuss financial, right? Financial usually happens when they're giving you a letter of offer, right? But it just depends on like the position I applied for. Okay, the position, the salary was there. I knew the hours, I knew the job title, I knew the salary. I knew the salary range, right? There was a low range and a high range. And so I knew I was going to be in between there, one or the other, right? Or in between. So, but some positions, if it's being, if there is no salary range, it's a tough call. You have to see how the interview is going. If the interview is going really well and they ask for your references, then at that point you could say, when will the successful candidate be offered the position? When does the job start? Is there a particular salary range that you're looking at? So kind of throw it in at the end. If it looks like you really feel that they're going to offer you the position. And of course, what better way to see that is if they ask for your references, right? So when I did my interview, one of the questions was, because I had everything in my portfolio, I said, were you asking for references at this time? And two of the panel members said, no, we actually haven't asked for any references at this point. And then the coordinator's coordinator jumped in and says, no, we haven't done that yet, but do you have any references? Would you like to provide them now? So do you see how that went? They hadn't even asked for any references, but I guess I did so well in the interview. Well, I got the job, I guess I did. They asked for the references, so that I gave them to them right then and there. So you have to have a feel. You'll be able to feel to see how the interview is going. When I left the interview, I felt really good about it, right? So you're generally going to know how that feels. Any other questions? But be honest. And one thing I can tell you about the resume, because I do facilitate that workshop as well. If you do get a consultant or you hire somebody, get somebody else to write your resume, make sure that you understand how, like what those words that they're describing your transferable skills, make sure you understand what those words mean. There's been many times where people had somebody else write their resume. They go into the interview, they're asked a question and they're using a word from the resume and the person doesn't even know what it means. So really make sure, this is representing you, so really make sure that you know everything on your resume, you're understanding what it is. Because you look pretty silly if they ask you a question. So you say on your resume that you have these skills and you're just sitting there, you don't have a clue, right? So make sure you read your resume and it identifies your story the way it should. Any other questions? It's really important if you, when you're doing an interview, that you always thank them with a follow-up email. That's really important. And then if you haven't heard anything, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, well, maybe 2 weeks, send another email, right? I had a client, they said they kept bugging. The employer hired them because they kept seeing this email, thank you, and have you, you know, chosen the right candidate yet? And so they're just like, this person really wants this job. Let's just give this job to this person. They're really interested. I've had so many clients who attend interviews and then they don't respond. They don't send a thank you. I'm like, well, did you hear anything back? Well, no. I'm like, well, did you contact them, right? To see where they're at with the interviewing, if they've selected the candidate. It doesn't hurt. You're just, right? They remember who you are. You're like, oh, okay, that's Shelly. That's right. Maybe we should look at her resume again just to make sure, right? So you want them to remember you. You want to shine and you want to show that you really want that job. And what better way to do it than making sure that they know who you are, right? Any other questions? I think have we just solved the questions? I think. So all I can do is recommend that you do reach out. The Employment Ontario, it's all through the Ministry of Labour and Skills Development. The program is through the Employment Ontario program. We offer our particularly website, we offer all sorts of workshops. They're all free. We have some interactive. We have some that are just, you know, online. Interactive means you're going to get a real person. We do the second career program. There's an information session coming up next month. If you're, you know, you've been in a position where you've been laid off, which a lot of people are doing. We're having more and more people now going back to school from second career. So that's something as well to look at. There's a lot of options out there for you. I don't know if you've ever heard of the JMPI program. So that's the Job Match Placement Incentive Program, and it is for employers. So if you connect with an employment consultant and you're registered with them, you're going through job search interventions. Our particular office, we have a job developer. The job developer works with employers within the community. And if there's a job that looks good for you and you're interested in it, and the employer interviews you and would like you for the job, the government will pay them, will pay the employer. It's called a JMPI incentive. So basically they're paying for them to train you. And some of the placements can be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks. And you know what? It's a way to get your foot in the door, right? Especially if you're new to Canada, new to working in Canada, it's a really good way to for the training. I've had many clients go through JMPI program, and then the whole objective is that the government pays the employer an incentive for your training, and then the objective is at the end of that placement that the employer would hire you as a regular employee. So many people are going through the JMPI program. So it's, you know, it's a good way for employers. They're basically your salary is being paid. Could be, you know, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. They even have placements for 12 weeks. And the employer got paid the whole salary for the time that they were there. So something to think about. So reach out if you are actively job searching. Reach out to employment service providers. We're here to help you guys. You know, that's what our job is. So how can we present our soft skills in our resume? So you've got hard skills and you've got soft skills. Obviously, the hard skills is a lot easier, right? Because it's, you know, if you're a writer or you have excellent computer application, software skills. The hard skills is easier. The soft skills, it's all about your communication, your customer service. So put all that down, right? If you have certifications, some people are now getting certificates in customer service, right? So put the soft skills down there: communication, customer service, interpersonal skills, right? Leadership skills, put those all down there, right? It's good to show hard skills and soft skills, and make sure that you look, deconstruct that job posting, highlight all the skills on the job posting, and make sure that they're under your qualifications. So for your resume, you obviously want to have your name, your contact information, your email, your phone number. You don't necessarily need to have your address. If you live in Canada and you're applying for a job in Canada, put Canada, right? But if you're not, just put your phone number. Like myself, I live out by Kempsville, and I was wanting a job in Ottawa, right? If I put down Kempsville, Ontario, they could be like, oh, okay, where is that? Then there's going to be a commute problem. Like, they're already thinking negative thoughts about you, right? So you need your phone number, your email address, and your name, right? Then you want to have a profile statement. So don't go right into work experience or your summary qualifications, right? You want to put down your profile, right? Who are you? You're a professional customer service, customer service professional with 10 years of experience, looking to enhance my skills and abilities, right? So tell people what you're looking for. Then go into your summary of qualifications, right? Or your summary of skills, or highlight the skills and abilities. But make sure that you put down, when you deconstruct the job posting, if they're looking for somebody with, C+ certification, or PMP, or, Microsoft application, put that under your summary of qualifications. Because I'm telling you, an employer is going to look at your resume within the 20 to 30 seconds. If they don't see on the top what they like, they're going to move on. They're not even going to continue reading. So put your profile, put your summary of qualifications, then you can go into your education, you can go into your professional work experience or work history, right? A lot of people now are using functional resumes as opposed to chronological, particularly because of your skill set. So, maybe you have financial, you have communications, you have leadership, right? So a lot of people are doing those core competencies instead of just a chronological. So look up functional resumes. It's very, it seems to be, especially if you have really good skill sets, people are really liking the functional resume style. There is the combined as well, but have a look at the functional resume. How can we present our soft skills in our, okay, we've done that one already. So I think that's it. Do we have any other questions before we go? And feel free to, go to our website. I will be doing the resume clinic next month as well. If you're interested in that, there's a second career information session. There's self-care. There's career discovery. There's all sorts of great workshops out there. Take advantage of them. They're all free. Okay, that sound good?
Perfect. Thank you very much, Shelly.
No problem. And feel free to email me. My email address is it there? It's sbyrne, SBYRNE.
Yeah, I send it to everyone with the follow-up email.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, perfect. If you have like a resume, you want me to kind of just add some points to it, or you have an interview coming up. But again, take advantage of all the Employment Ontario offices in Ottawa. Take advantage of them, connect with them, and employment consultants, that's what we're here. We're here to help you guys through your whole pathway of your job. Okay.
Perfect. But before we close, there's one more question.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Mona.
I just have one more question regarding that GMPR. Am I right? JMPR or GMPR?
JMPI. So it's Job Match Placement Incentive.
Okay, and what kind of organizations are involved in that program? Are they
All like what our office is, so Employment Ontario Service Providers.
So does it include like, small businesses or bigger companies or governmental jobs or all of them?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you wouldn't see like a government job or, like academia. You probably wouldn't see that. Small businesses, definitely public sector, that sort of thing. I've had PMPs do that. Office administrative positions, medical positions, if somebody wants to, it's basically, I mean, the government already has, if you're applying to the government, it wouldn't work generally with them, right? Because then you're getting money from two different, kind of like the same thing. So it's more small businesses that are generally, I think your private sector and your small businesses would probably be the best for that. And there's anywhere from hospitality to the trade to administrative, a lot of those PMP, a lot of those different areas, the employers will get incentives.
Thank you. And your website is the Employment Ontario website, right?
Our website is Community Employment Resource Center.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Here, you want me to type this here? So it's the acronym is CERP, right? So you just put it in, but it stands for Community Employment Resource Center. And we are under the John Howard Society. My division is the Employment Services.
Thank you very much.
So, the YMCA, there's a JELIC, there's one on Moody. They're all Ottawa. If you Google Employment Ontario, offices in Ottawa, so depending on where you live, there'll be one close to you. They're all over Ottawa.
Excellent.
And you can choose wherever you want to go. You don't have to, I mean, right now, the office is closed, but the employment consultants, we're doing virtually through Zoom to do assessment, but people who really need that face-to-face, we are meeting clients in person as well, right? Because not everybody wants to do the Zoom or on the phone. Some clients want to work in person with somebody. So all of our offices are doing the same.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the information.
So please reach out, give us and contact us, and we're here to help you guys all with your job search and interventions and your job search journey. And we would be more than happy to help you guys. Okay. So thank you very much, and it was a real pleasure doing this workshop, and I really look forward to seeing you maybe in another one, maybe in the resume one.
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Shelly.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Good night, everyone.